So yeah, I'm here to talk to you today about Autodesk Forma. So Autodesk Forma is a tool that Autodesk acquired about 18 months ago. It was previously a tool called SpaceMaker. They bought it from a Nordic-based startup for about $140 million, and they've now brought that into what's known as the Autodesk Forma tool, and they have other integrations with their other Autodesk portfolio as well. And just to clarify, I'm Jonathan Reinhardt, and I work for NTI Diatech Group, and we're based across Ireland, the UK, and now further in the Nordics and Europe as well as part of our NTI acquisition. So effectively, what I'm going to go through today, or in the next few minutes, is to show you what this tool does, how it can support your early stage design, whether you're an architect, whether you're working on multi-unit housing, or whether you're involved at any early stage of construction or design or housing or multi-story projects. Effectively, what this is a web-based app. You access it through a web browser, but it also integrates then with other BIM tools such as Revit, such as Autodesk Construction Cloud as well. And it can give you early stage analysis, things like operational energy efficiency, daylight hours of your site, as well as solar impact, or where to optimize and put solar panels, for example, on a particular site. So I suppose a lot of the trends, or how do we respond to some of the trends that are happening in the industry that some of the other speakers have mentioned. We see a lot of fragmented processes happening just generally in the industry, whether that's from design or our other construction stage, and that brings inefficiencies, as we're well aware of. And we can see a lot of the organizations and speakers here today are solving a lot of those problems, either as their offerings or as their own organization operations as well. So Autodesk Forma, then, where does it fit into the design process? So it fits in at that really early stage of the design process, almost feasibility or concept design stage. So Forma as a tool, like I said, it's web-based, so it does a lot of analysis, as I mentioned, wind, solar, sun, all of that. But there's also a lot of automation built into it as well. So there is actually an AI tool that will generate you with a number of units to fit on a site, for example. So that can be multi-housing, multi-unit housing, individual houses. It can be semi-Ds, terrace of houses. It can be apartments. It can be student residence. It can be hotel bedrooms. It will automate a lot of that based on the numbers you require to hit on a site. And then what you can do with that information effectively, you can actually bring that information in to your design tools. That becomes a massing model effectively. We're all very familiar with the McLeamy curve. I'm not going to bang on about that too much, but the earlier we can make changes at the design stage is effectively the point of this. So if we capture more design changes that are valuable or beneficial to make at an early stage, they're not going to reach into the further construction of the project or onto construction sites or the operation of that building as well. So making early interventions or early design decisions is quite important as well. So Autodesk Forma, you've probably heard a lot about it, particularly in the last 6 to 12 months. Autodesk certainly have big plans for it. I'll certainly say that. But what I'm going to show you today is effectively what you can do in the software today is available to you if you have access to the software. If you've things like AEC Collection, you may have free access to this, for example. And just to let you know how I'm working with this with practitioners in the industry, I'm working with a couple of large design organizations. One is UK based, and we're currently implementing this with them in their design practice and their design workflows. I'm also involved. We're now teaching this to master students on the TUD BIM Masters as well, which I was just doing last night. So it is starting to be used extensively in the industry, even though it's in its early stages. It's a bit ominous. So just to explain the first kind of Forma offering that's available to you now, it has lots of analysis and lots of automation built into it already, and I'm going to get straight into that as well. So there's a couple of videos, so please play. There we go, brilliant. Should be on mute, perfect. So what this is just going to show you is some of the analysis that's available in the software. So what you'll see on the right-hand side is your analysis toolbar. On the left-hand side is that massing model that you can effectively model yourself from 3D, extrusions, 3D manipulation. But you can also auto-generate a lot of that geometry using something called the Explore tool as well. So for housing, you just click on a site and it will generate hundreds or thousands of houses, for example, or apartments. And then you can perform all that various analysis, wind analysis, and then you can compare these side by side as well, things like microclimate as well. You can also compare these side by side. Go, okay, well, I've got 10 options. Look at, okay, what's the solar impact of option 1 versus option 2 versus option 3, and so on and so forth. I can also look at the operational energy efficiency as well. and compare different building designs across an entire site. So again, this is aimed at mixed use developments, housing developments, whether that's a dense city site or even a greenfield site for a housing development as well. So that was some of the analysis. Sorry, I'm going to skip that one. That's already what I've spoken about. So just to then put again that in context, what we're looking at contextual modeling data. So this is effectively the process that you'll go through if you're using Autodesk Forma as software. So you'll perform contextual modeling. So that's you generate your surrounding buildings, for example. So all of that is automated as well. So it connects into OpenStreetMap and ArcGIS information as well. So it will pull in surrounding buildings and generate that geometry for you as well. To a certain degree of accuracy, I wouldn't go constructing of any of those buildings that it generates, but gives you very good detail in terms of surrounding context. Obviously, that impacts then from a solar shading perspective, from a daylight access as well. We need to know the context of a building if it's particularly in a dense location. You're then taking that context or modeling data and you're carrying that through to the conceptual design stage. So you're generating your initial geometry, whether that's just basic volumes or whether it has a bit more detail with balconies and different types of extrusions to a more detailed level as well. And then you can perform automations on that site to look at maybe, okay, well, we've generated what we thought would fit on the site. What will the software actually tell us can fit on a site? How many apartments, how many 2 beds, how many 3 beds, how many studio apartments or 1 beds can we fit on this site? So can we maximize what the site is actually able to achieve? And then based on that geometry that's auto-generated, we then perform analysis on top of that as well. So that's where the wind, the solar, the daylight, and the energy operation comes into that as well. It mentions interoperability. Currently, the interoperability is just into Revit, but you can bring in IFC and OBJ files and DXF files into your initial conceptual environment as well. So this is just going to show you a basic video then on just doing a very quick massing study. So literally in 5 minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes, you can choose your site location. You can put in what you see there, the red surface, that's your site boundary or your red line you may have obtained from a surveyor, for example. And you can quickly generate a couple of massing options on this. So what this is showing us is sunlight access to the facade. You can then hover over that facade and it will show you the measurement of that. And then you can output that into Revit. So that will actually bring in the massing information, but it will turn it into Revit walls, Revit levels, Revit floors, Revit roofs, and all that automatically as well. And that's just a simple push button from the tool. And then when you're in Revit, load proposal, and it brings that in for you as well. So you're reusing that geometry that you may have generated at that early stage as well. That's just some of the surrounding site context that it generates. That's one of that's our site in the middle is the red box that you're seeing. We can also line up again if we have OBJ or IFC models, for example, or even OS maps or anything at an early stage. We can place trees onto the site as well. Very simple, but they obviously have an impact then from a shading perspective or solar access or daylight access to green open spaces, for example. And then we can divide up the site and produce different types of design models, different types of extrusions, and perform that different type of analysis on it as well. And just a little bit of further detail on that. So the location itself is based on OpenStreetMap. So you choose your location, you define your site effectively, and it brings you into this kind of globe view. You choose your site, whether it's city-based or not. That's going to bring in the surrounding context. So we'll see the option now to choose the buildings in that area. So it will bring in, minimum you have to bring in 450-meter rate or square area of the building site context, which is quite important. You can also bring in roads information for noise analysis as well, which I forgot to mention. And you can bring in 3D terrain information into that and generate your different site options on top of that as well. So that's going to bring in the site context that we'll see now in a moment. So you can see it brings in all the site context, and then your site is going to be somewhere in there for your own site boundary, for example. Bring in reference underlaid images as well, and then generate the volumetric or extrusions based on that as well. So, this one quickly. So just to show you how we can also edit some of the 3D extrusions as well. So we can create, courtyards in the middle for extrusions. We can create different levels based on that as well. What you're seeing on the left-hand side, these are your different design options. So you might have option A, option B, option C, and contained in each of them is what's known as your layers. Your layers contain your building design for that particular option, and then you can move between the different options on the left-hand side and perform your analysis on the right-hand side. You can go further in, get away from your initial volumetric building, and you can start to add in dormers, balconies, different types of design elements onto that as well. So this is the automation tool. So that's running through a series of cycles. Sorry, I'll just pause that for a minute. So that does use an AI integration. Sorry, it won't let me pause it. That does use an AI integration, and it will generate different surfaces, different volumes based on the site area that you're choosing. Sorry, it doesn't let me skip forward, apologies. So that will auto generate then different building designs based on that as well. And then what we can further do with those buildings, as well as performing the analysis on it, we can also then bring in a floor plan, so we can get into that finer level of detail then as well. So we can input corridors, we can say where our stair core is, we can say where our actual apartments or hotel bedrooms or student res units are as well, and it will recognize the categorization of those elements as well. So what we're seeing here is a breakdown of a floor plan, so you can get into that finer level of detail. Those floor plans, if you have a typical house type or a typical apartment type, you can repeat that across other parts of your maybe building designs that you may also use on different sites as well as part of that. And then finally, at the end of that, what you can do with that massing study, for example, you can then push that into Revit, like I've mentioned as well, because to show you that process in a little bit more detail, I can then choose my preferred option proposal on the left-hand side for my site. And I can say, okay, well, I like option A or option B for the analysis reasons that it's given back to me in terms of the solar radiation impact, the energy operational impact as well. And then I can bring that into Revit. It will bring in all the surrounding context. The 3D terrain is taken from satellite imagery, so take it with a pinch of salt, but it will bring that into Revit. And just for that really early stage, it means you're not going off looking for that information elsewhere. For example, send your proposal into Revit. And then just open that proposal when it gets into Revit. Then, sorry, the video just won't let me skip through. So that's just an initial kind of concept or massing for that particular design option. I can then load that into Revit using, it's probably called SpaceMaker here. It's now called the Forma plugin. It will load that proposal in. So it's bringing in proposal 1 for that particular location. It brings in the location information from Forma and into the Revit location information as well. And then it brings in the intelligence of the parametric information if you want to start adding that to your wall thicknesses and the likes as well. So the way I'm seeing this be used, yes, the analysis tools are out of the box, and they use a certain amount of assumptions for those analyses to be performed. But I am seeing a lot more plugins being developed that you can build your own plugins as well. So it gives you that access to their API. You could potentially build in other types of energy measurement or carbon measurement and plugins as well that you could also sit inside the software and inside Autodesk Forma itself. So thank you very much.
You.